Throughout American history, moments of social unrest have often served as a mirror, reflecting the deep-seated racial and economic inequalities that persist in our society. Two such moments, the Newark Riots of 1967 and the Crown Heights Riots. The Crown Heights Riots of 1991 stand as powerful reminders of how systemic injustice can erupt into violence when left unaddressed. Today I want to take you through the stories of these two events, their causes, their impacts, and what they teach us about the ongoing struggle for racial justice in America. The Newark Riots began on July 12, 1967, but the roots of the unrest stretch back decades. Newark, New Jersey was a city marked by racial segregation, economic inequality, and systemic neglect. African Americans faced discrimination in housing, employment, and education, while police brutality was a constant reality. The spark that ignited the riots came when a black cab driver, John Smith, was beaten by police after a minor traffic violation. News of the incident spread quickly, and the community's anger boiled over. For 6 days, Newark was engulfed in violence with protests, looting, and clashes between residents and law enforcement. When the dust settled, 26 people were dead, hundreds were injured, and thousands were arrested. But the Newark riots were not just about one incident. They were a cry for justice, a demand for an end to systemic racism and inequality. In the aftermath of the riots, Newark became a symbol of urban unrest and the failures of the American system. The Kerner Commission, established to investigate the causes of the riots, concluded that the unrest was a result of systemic racism, poverty, and police brutality. But while the report called for sweeping reforms, little changed. Newark remained a city struggling with poverty and inequality, and the scars of the riots lingered for decades. Yet the riots also sparked a sense of empowerment in the black community. They led to the increased political activism and the eventual election of Newark's first black mayor, Kenneth Gibson, in 1970. The riots were a turning point, a moment when the community demanded to be seen and heard. 24 years later, another city would erupt in violence, this time in the Crown Heights neighborhood of Brooklyn, New York. The Crown Heights riot of 1991 were a stark reminder that racial and ethnic tensions were far from resolved. The riots began on August 19, 1991, when a car in the motorcade of a Hasidic Jewish leader struck and killed a 7-year-old black child named Gavin Cato. The accident ignited long-simmering tensions between the black Caribbean American community and the Hasidic Jewish community. For 3 days, Crown Heights was consumed by violence, with clashes between residents, protests, and attacks on property. The riots exposed deep divisions and mistrust between the two communities, as well as frustrations over unequal access to resource and police protection. The Crown Heights riots left a lasting impact on the neighborhood and the city. 2 people died and many more were injured. The riots also highlighted the need for dialogue and understanding between communities. In the years that followed, efforts were made to bridge the divide. Interfaith groups, community leaders, and activists worked to foster understanding and cooperation between the black and Jewish communities. While progress was slow, these efforts showed that healing was possible, even in the face of deep-seated tensions. The Newark riots and the Crown Heights riots may have occurred in different decades and under different circumstances, but they share common themes. Both were rooted in systemic inequality, racial tensions, and a lack of trust in institutions meant to protect and serve. They also remind us that unrest is not random. It is a result of years, even decades of neglect and injustice. When communities are marginalized, when their voices are ignored, and when their pain is dismissed, the consequences can be explosive. Today, as we continue to grapple with issues of racial injustice, police brutality, and economic inequality, the lessons of Newark and Crown Heights remain as relevant as ever. They remind us that true change requires more than just addressing the symptoms of inequality. It requires dismantling the systems that perpetuate it. They remind us that the importance of community, dialogue, and solidarity in the face of division. It is up to all of us to build bridges, to listen, and to work together for a more just and equitable future. The Newark riots and the Crown Heights riots are not just moments in history. They're a part of an ongoing story, a story of struggle, resilience, and hope. They remind us that the fight for justice is far from over. They also show us that the change is possible when we come together and demand it. As we reflect on these events, let us honor the lives lost, the communities affected, and the lessons learned, and let us commit building a society where everyone, regardless of race, ethnicity, or background, can live with dignity, respect, and equality. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and keep making history. I'm Daryl Omar, and I'll see you soon.